Good evening, everybody. Go ahead, Hope.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening and welcome to the City of Lincoln's regular meeting of the City Council. This meeting will be televised and available on cable channel 18, as well as available via Zoom. Tonight's invocation will be given by Stephen Hay from Salt Mine. Once the invocation has concluded, Mayor Andreatta will call the meeting to order.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the invite today to the invocation. I'm
Thank you for being here.
always pleased. It's an honor. I love Lincoln and love what you guys do every single week. And it's not my thing, and I'm glad that I don't have to do it. So thank you for your service and sacrifice. I appreciate that. But if you would join me in prayer. Father, we thank you for your blessings and your grace, and that you hear our prayers this evening, that you look upon even this meeting in Lincoln and look to bless it and to grace it with your wisdom. We ask for just that, that in all future planning that will take place here today, that you would bless Lincoln. Provide each of our leaders, our officials, community members with wisdom to see to a better future for Lincoln, a thriving future for Lincoln. And I thank you for all of those that are concerned with its well-being. Thank you, Father, and I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you so much. Hey, welcome, everybody. I call this meeting to order at 6:02. The City of Lincoln 2025 regular meeting, City Council, Lincoln Redevelopment Successor Agency, Lincoln Public Finance Authority. Right. Oh, roll call, please.
Councilmember Reedy,
Here.
Councilmember Pearl,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Eklund, here, Mayor Andreatta.
I'm here. Thank you. You know what? I don't see. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at session. Okay, report from closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. There is no reportable action.
I was looking for the Pledge of Allegiance, but I was looking at the other agenda. All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would one of our firefighters please lead us? Any one of you that want to? Thank you. Yes. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. All right, item number 9, agenda modifications. Do any of the council wish to modify the agenda?
I have none.
Any staff? All right.
Mayor, if possible, perhaps after the consent calendar, could we, so I'm just making sure that it's also
12B.
already in that position. Perhaps after presentations, could we move 14A? Our bond counsel is here this evening and while I'm sure he'll stay as long as is needed, he does need to fly back to Southern California this evening.
Okay, so 14A after public comment?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not a problem. Great, thank you for that. Any others? Okay. All right, item 10, presentation. We have a presentation recognizing firefighter Alex Angriano and engineer Corey Lady and their contributions to Lincoln's Fill the Boot annual fundraiser campaign by Executive Director Joe Pick of the Firefighters Burn Institute. Hi, Chief, how are you?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You already introduced him for me, but again,
I'm
my
sorry.
name is Matt Alvson, Public Safety Chief for the City of Lincoln, and this evening I would like to introduce Joe Pick, the Executive Director of the Firefighters Burn Institute, to give a presentation to a couple of our staff.
Awesome,
Oh, and Boots is with him.
awesome. Aw,
So Joe and I work together with Hearts for Heroes as well, so our dogs have some things in common.
I bet they do. Well, welcome, Boots.
Yes, this is Boots. Boots is a therapy dog for burn survivors. And with Chief Alves, we work together with Hearts for Heroes. That's where we got the dog. And we train together, and they're dogs that are in firehouses, police departments, and our burn institute. So this one goes to kids camps, family camps, and his support for burn survivors.
I love that.
So my name is Joe Pick, as you said. I'm the executive director of the Firefighters Burn Institute, retired fire captain from Metro Fire, and a proud union member of Local 522, which I'm proud to say Lincoln is a part of 522. 522 is our governing body that is my boss and my governing body. Give you a little background on the Burn Institute. 1972, there was an airplane crash in the Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor. 23 people died that day and over 25 had burn injuries. We had no burn unit in Sacramento. One firefighter said we could do better, and within 1 year, our organization was formed, and within a year after that, we had a burn unit in Sacramento. That burn unit is titled the Firefighters Burn Institute Regional Burn Center at UC Davis. We have continued the mission of the best healthcare, burn care that we can get in this region. And in 1997, Shriners actually moved from San Francisco to Sacramento to partner with UC Davis to provide pediatric and adult burn care. Amazing partnership. What I want this community to know is that we as an organization serve burn survivors up and down Northern California and well beyond that, with programs for kids, for adults, anyone that's burned, that had a burn injury, whether it was last week or 10 years ago. That is our community, and that is the community I serve, that we serve. And what I want this board to know is that we couldn't do it without the support of all the fire departments up and down. I just got done from Sutter County for a boot drive that they did. We rely on our firefighters to do the fundraising that we need to provide all these programs free of charge to any burn survivor from any region within California and beyond. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the boot drive that we have today, and I got a few deliveries. I'd like to pull up Alex Anguiano. Did I do it right? I told you I was going to mess it up. Get my notes here. So in this, and just had it. Here we go. This year's boot drive for Lincoln, they raised $20,888.62 during their satellite boot drive. That is no small accomplishment. As a matter of fact, it is such an accomplishment that when we hit that level, we provide
Oh, wow.
a plaque for the 20 Grand Club. So,
That's
Alex,
awesome.
welcome. Welcome to the 20 Grand Club.
Could you repeat that number one more time? Could you repeat that number one more
I
time?
can. $20,888.62.
Okay, great.
He's doing what he does. He just makes friends. He is a community dog, so that is his role. This is Alex's second year doing this boot drive. He's done a phenomenal job. It warms after 30 years in the fire service myself when I see young firefighters stepping up and realizing that this profession goes well beyond the 10 shifts a month and more that they do. It is representing their community, supporting their community, and that's what I want this community to know, that these dollars go to people that are in your community. Certainly, probably one that hits home for me is Marcus Allen's son and Gabe, which are still a part of our community. I see them on a regular basis. That had a huge impact on this community. And what we did is, although their school they were from was in Roseville, we did a debriefing with them within a week time with all the students, with the parents. That was a tight-knit group of people that went through a very tragic event. We look at all aspects of burn injuries, how they affect the whole family and how they affect the community, and we try to give support to that. I do have a plaque, and Chief, if you'd like to come up for this one, and we'll, so this is our thank you plaque to Lincoln Fire Department for their continued support. of our organization and their loyalty to the Burn Institute. Thank you, Chief. All right, I have one more recognition that I would like to, Corey Lady, let's see, I had it right the first time, and his wife Jennifer. Let me tell you a little bit about them. They were the lead boot drive coordinators for Lincoln from 2017 to 2023. Before that, they assisted in our boot drive in Citrus Heights. Between 2017, 2003, and 2017, Lincoln, I'm sorry, that was between 2003 and 2017, they have run this, led the boot drive. During that time frame, they raised $592,482.26. They also were a part of something that is special to Lincoln. Lincoln Fire Department is the only satellite boot drive to ever make it to the 50 Grand Club, raising $50,000. They did it 5 times under Corey and his wife's leadership. So if the two of you would come up. I want to personally thank you for your dedication to the fire service and to the Firefighters Burn Institute. The legacy that you have left some big shoes to fill for that young man. But he is, he's taken it on and taking it on well. I appreciate so much all that you have done for us. Thank you. Okay. In closing, I just would like to reiterate the fact that one of the things with our organization, we are a fire-based charity. Our union runs it, firefighters started it, firefighter led it. We rely on our firefighters to get us the funds that we need. But many times when these folks are out in the street, they think, oh, this is to help the firefighters. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. We appreciate that community support, but what I want the community to know that we take care of our firefighters. There's no question about that. But that is just one small lane of what we do to provide aftercare and support for our burn community. There are kids that I met when they were 6 years old that now I have dinner with us on a regular basis and are 21 years old. And they are now counselors for the next generation of firefighters or burn survivors. And in the fire service, that's what we do as well. So again, I want to thank this community. I want to thank Lincoln Fire Department. I want to thank Corey and Jennifer and Alex for their efforts. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate that wonderful presentation. We too are very proud of our team. That day that they did Fill the Boot, I think each one of us took a little bit of time out there on the streets with them. And it was very rewarding. It was a lot of fun. And my arm was really sore after the end of the day for holding up that boot. I was like, I need to work out some more. But they hustled, and to know that they raised so much money is quite inspirational. And so thank you, gentlemen and ladies, very much for all that you do. Just on a personal note, like I have had a very close friend that I used to teach with. His son was at Shriners. He got burned. And then you mentioned Marcus Allen's son. Those young men were my former students in middle school. And so I was very aware of that situation, very tragic. And so thank you for your service to all of them and for helping them all get through that. Very much appreciated it. But thank you so much. We're very proud of all of you, and keep up the good work. Would you like to, any council members like to?
Let me just make a comment. First, Alex, I want to thank you personally for stepping up
Yes.
and doing it. It's a huge lift. I was out there, as the mayor said, it was just a great day to be out there. The receptivity of the community as they came through was good. It takes someone to stand up and make that happen. However, And so we are so happy that you have accepted that and are there, and you can't let the job go now. It is yours for a long time. Okay. And I shared this with Joe. My wife was a burn nurse with the Institute and the Burn Center at UC Davis. And I first met Cliff Haskell, who started the Burn Institute back in 1990s. I have to say that when my wife and I first got together, I came home and I was just mentioning how rough a day I had. My clients were beating on me and everything else. And she said, "Oh, you had a bad day? Let's go down to my shop. And I want to show you what a bad day is." And I walked in there, it was my first time into the burn unit, and I have never had a bad day since, I'll tell you. The work that you do, that an organization does, is just absolutely exceptional. And you're right, I've seen firefighters in there, but generally speaking, originally it was the youth and also the adults. It is, don't get burned, folks. I mean, it is a horrific place, but the work they do is just out of sight. It is just so thank you for your continuation of everything that you guys are doing.
I truly believe I'm heading to American Burn Association in Arizona in 2 weeks, where burn units from all over the country and Canada come. And the more I go to those, the more I see that we are providing some of the finest burn care in this country without question. And that partnership with Shriners, the commitment of those burn staff, the length of time that they stay there, saw a evaluation that they were doing of burn units, and the person identified, "You've got 25 years and you've got 20 years. The newest person had like 5 years." He said, "That's unprecedented." That speaks to the team that we have in this community. So if a burn happens, I agree with you, Richard. Let's prevent every burn we can. But if you get one, you're going to get the finest care. I also want to stay, and then I'll finish. These folks were doing this on their off time, which again speaks to what the fire service is. We put in our shifts, but it's we live and breathe our the fire service and giving back to the community. Your community, your firefighters are showing that very well.
Yeah, and I thought we had,
they're the
I thought we
best.
had all of the off-duty guys there,
Yeah.
guys and gals there. And then we also had some of the on-duty guys cycle through, so fabulous. Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead. I was just gonna say it was very well organized. Also, it was great. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say also that I'm glad to see that Alex is taking the reins being so young, because he can carry it on for many, many years. And I love that you're going to high schools and you're connecting with the youth to help them understand the importance of what these dollars go towards. And I also want to say thank you to them for, not the youth, the firefighters, for allowing my son to come and be a part of that. As a youth, giving back to the community and volunteering time to be with them helps the youth take on something in their own minds of what that, not just going and doing the presentation, but then allowing them to help serve in that capacity too. So thanks, Alex. Appreciate you guys.
Great. Yep, go ahead.
Thank you for everything that you do, and I can't imagine the impact that you're having. And in short, my heart is full, and I'm so proud of you guys and proud of you for organizing this, and I'm proud that you're our firefighters and you're representing Lincoln.
Thank
you so much. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. All right, everything is downhill from that now. Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you. Okay, we will go on to item 11, public comment. This is the time for public comment on non-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Give our guys a minute. Thank you. So I have 2 cards for this. The first one is Ron Dolensek.
Thank you,
Good evening.
Mayor Andrada.
Yeah, hi.
Ron Dolensik, I live at 520 Adelaide Place here in Lincoln. And some of you may be familiar with me from participation in the Budget and Investment Committee. You're being saved today, though, because I recognize that we're limited to 5 minutes up here, and the Budget and Investment Committee is not used to that from me, so you're saved today. But having said that, the reason I'm here, actually Wallace and I are here today, is because of the the current CAL FIRE report that came out. And those of us in Turkey Creek Estate area have really been impacted by those findings. By and large, we're rated anywhere from high risk to moderate risk out there. And we've already had current residences that have gotten notice of non-renewal on their home mortgage insurance policies. That's obviously going to impact new potential buyers as well. We're seeing some of that already. And so one of the things that we've done is one of my first calls was to Richard Pearl, who asked us to put together a communication outlining our interests and concerns. And I won't go through all that today because I know that'll probably come up at future events as well. And but we did prepare that, and he brought Sean Scully in on this as well. And I just wanted to acknowledge them for their interest and how responsive they've been to the concerns that we've expressed. And I know that in the short term, I think that what we're really looking for is whatever can be worked out between the city and the builder would provide some hopefully immediate short-term benefits to our residences. In other words, whatever he might find that he's required to do to mitigate some of the risks would probably benefit us all. And I would also mention that I'm a little bit familiar with some of the neighboring cities that they're also trying to work with City Councilman Joe Patterson and State Senator Roger Niello. I would see that as more of a long-term solution. We're laymen. We really don't know what all the options and potentials are behind all this, but we are looking forward to the responsiveness already exhibited by your city leadership, if you will, and with those alternatives that there may be some other options out there to work with neighboring cities as well to hope bring some resolution that might result in mitigating some of the insurance risks that we're finding. As an example, I know of one case where a neighbor has had to come up with about $7,500 on insurance when I know in the neighborhood that my first bill was $2,300 for fire insurance. So I'm probably not going to know what the costs and consequences are going to be until probably around August. So hopefully through your research and efforts, you can bring some resolution to this risk mitigation need and provide benefit to the neighborhood that will not only affect or influence current residences, but future buyers as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Oh,
just to
yeah.
follow up on that for a quick question.
Yeah.
City Manager Scully, we had another presentation here, I think, last time about the same issue on the west side of town. Any update from working with CAL FIRE?
No, no. Although we have been looking into, I will just very quickly tell you what we have learned. One of the things that we explored a little was whether or not it was truly a discretionary decision by the city council to adopt these maps after the noticing period. So the question, of course, I always ask is, what if we don't do it? And what we learned was that it doesn't really matter. Whether or not why they even have you go through an adoption process makes no sense. I think it's because the city council may have the authority to expand the zones, but not contract them. So they will go into place as submitted unless something happens in Sacramento. But we're still, I've been communicating with a couple CAL FIRE captains that know, that are working on this, and we're working on a Zoom call where I can ask all the questions that I think Ron and his neighborhood would like to know, depending on what risk level I'm put into, what does that mean likely for my ability to acquire insurance? Does it change? Because remember, a lot of these areas, including where Ron and his neighbor live, are developing areas. And so to the extent that maybe they did have some fire risk in the past, as things build, the risk reduces significantly, especially since we have we saw them here, a modern fire department with really good water pressure, and haven't had significant, area-wide fires in Lincoln, at least to my knowledge, beyond just what you would expect in a city. So I'll probably have a much better update for you around the time you're considering the map itself, which is 30-ish days or so.
Okay, next up is Mastius Richards. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. You can correct me when you come up here. Tell me how you say your name.
It's Matthias, but it's kind of a,
Matthias, okay. That's a T, not an S. Okay, got
yeah,
it.
it's kind of a name roulette depending on what part of the world you're in.
Yeah.
So I'm here today to discuss that Lincoln has been expanding a lot, which is great, attracting new people, but it's also been leading to an increase in the amount of lighting that we need to make the city or town safe for everybody, and that increases our level of light pollution. And this not only affects our ability to enjoy the night sky, but it also harms many species of nocturnal animal that are prevalent and some exclusive to the northern parts of Northern California, or I guess Northern California. And studies have shown that excessive artificial light can disrupt sleep patterns, harm wildlife, and waste energy, which we don't want to do. And it's not just us residents that are affected, but like I said, nocturnal animals are having a harder and harder time of not only finding a place to eat or to hunt, but also growing a stable population as more and more of area is taken and lighting becomes brighter and brighter, making it not able for them to safely, in their minds, hunt in the environment that they need. And with the new housing developments, in districts 3 and 4 coming in the parks and other public spaces that this council has voted on and sided with, we have something, as a community, we have an opportunity to do something really big with very little cost. And light pollution can be caused by many ways, but the most prevalent in our community is the design of the streetlights, which were, because I know this town is very old, going back to the 1890s, were made in a time where this issue was not as prevalent and was not as well known. And so they were designed in a way that is not very efficient with their lighting system. And the design shines light out upward, to the sides and downward, which the key parts are the sides and down, because that's the most effective use. Where the waste is coming from upward, and it's also blocking out the night sky and other things that nocturnal animals use to hunt. There are many fixes to this, which are very low cost. Red shifting LEDs is one big thing, because with the current shift to LEDs over incandescent, they became whiter and brighter, which is great for keeping people safe and energy consumption and efficiency, but it's also very bad because, like I said, it's brighter. So it's going out more. And one thing that I love to say is if you go to LA and you go to the Griffith Observatory, when that was made so far back, it was when LA was a very small town or city. But now you go there and it's practically useless. You can see the whole entire city. You can see all the lighting. You can see specific spots in the city because you know how they're lit. And another way is if you think of it like as putting a lampshade on, which directs light downward, which increases efficiency and lowers cost because less light would have to be used for the equivalent amount of performance, which can either halt or possibly even reverse this downward trend that we are seeing. And it could greatly reduce our local light pollution and energy consumption. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Can I ask you a quick question? I'm just curious. Is this a school project or is this something that you've researched or is this just a real concern for you?
It's a real personal thing for me because it's kind of a long story of how I got into it, but I really do love astronomy. And my, I guess would say greatest hope is to go to Caltech for their JPL derived programs that they have. So it is a very personal thing. And it's also just because it's going across California. And I met a very nice German man who said the reason why he flew out here was because the cities are so tightly packed and they are so bright. Besides maybe the Swiss Alps, which is just unreasonable, there's nowhere you can go where you can actually get a night sky that is worthwhile and that you can photograph and really just take in as an experience.
Well, thank you for taking the time to prepare that. One, it takes a lot of courage for anybody to stand up there, let alone a teenager. And two, you were very well spoken, so thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, are there any other public comments not on the agenda in the room? Okay, anybody online? Okay.
Yes, We've got 3 hands raised right now. I'll go ahead and unmute Gabe Hulbert. Please make your comment now.
Good evening, members of the Lincoln City Council. My name's Gabe Hulbert and I represent Home Run Financing, property assessed clean energy PACE administrator that finances energy efficiency, water conservation, and disaster resiliency home improvements for property owners voluntarily through their property taxes in over 325 California communities, including your neighbors, Auburn, Roseville, Citrus Heights, Rancho Cordova, Folsom, and the unincorporated parts of Placer and Sacramento counties. Thank you for your time this evening. California property owners are facing a crisis. As a result of drought, wildfires, and storms, homeowners face challenges of increasing insurance and energy costs in addition to public safety power shutoffs. Lincoln is no stranger to this. As residents face these challenges, the demand for resiliency measures such as backup generators, solar panels, and efficient HVAC systems, among others, has increased despite these upgrades being out of reach for many due to high price tags and limited access to affordable financing to pay for them. PACE is a transformational public policy in place for over a decade that solves this problem. Unlike other traditional methods of financing that require large down payments and have high variable interest rates, PACE provides these improvements with no upfront cash required and at fixed, affordable interest rates that is then paid back through a special property tax assessment. All of these benefits are offered with no taxpayer dollars or legal risk to the city. PACE delivers results not only for property owners, but also for the small businesses that step up to complete these home improvements. As a result of PACE, over $2.71 billion of private capital has been invested into California's local communities, creating countless jobs and opportunities for these small businesses. Since AB 1284 was passed in 2018, the PACE industry has delivered best-in-class consumer protections, including rigorous underwriting standards, financial disclosures, and verifying the ability to pay, among other countless measures. This California Statewide Communities Development Authority, the CSCDA, which Lincoln is already a member of, runs their Open PACE program with 3 providers, including Home Run Financing in countless California communities. By passing a resolution to join the Open PACE program, you can enable homeowners in Lincoln to make their properties more efficient and resilient to the current climate challenges they face. There's not a more beneficial program you can make available in your city that will give your homeowners access to these home improvements at zero cost to taxpayers. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Go ahead.
Next, we have Fran Neves. Fran, you have been unmuted. Please make your comment now.
Hi, I'm not sure if this is the time to speak or not, because I noticed that Hidden Hills and Oak Tree Lane is 12D on the consent item, but I don't know if it's going to be pulled so that people can talk about it.
So Fran, there's a couple questions for that. So how about you just hold tight for just a couple minutes and we'll let you make a comment or ask a question when we get to that. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. I just
Okay.
wasn't sure. Thank you.
Hold on 1 second. Yeah.
Okay, next we have Samantha Faddis. Samantha, you've been unmuted. Please make your comment now.
Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Faddis. I am a fellow 12 Bridges resident. My husband and I live in the 12 Bridges area with our 2 young kids off of Ridgecrest Drive and the Taylor Morrison development over there. We've been here for about 2 years, and I'm sure that for many of you that might be aware of this area, there is a huge speeding problem on Ridgecrest Drive. We live at the entrance of the neighborhood, and if you're familiar with Ridgecrest, there is a pretty steep hill coming down into the neighborhood that causes cars to just pretty much fly through the neighborhood. I mean, it's a residential street, so cars should be going 25 miles an hour, but I've seen cars going upwards of, 40 miles an hour plus, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have little kids out in the front yard, it's pretty unnerving. I have, reached out to the traffic line at the police. I've reached out to the city engineer to see what can be done as far as signage goes. I know that they installed a 25 mile per hour speed limit sign at the entrance to the neighborhood, but it hasn't really seemed to have done much. me and my other neighbors put out signs to slow down for the children at play signs, like the little green turtle man. And I've seen cars with people texting who hit those signs. So luckily it wasn't a child that they hit, but anyways, it just seems like no matter what I do, or if I post on the Facebook page and ask people to slow down, and I know my other neighbors do as well, it just seems like, people might slow down for a little bit and then it kind of goes away. It seems like everything we do is kind of met up with deaf ears. As parents, I know there's only so much we can do. As you could teach your kids not to run out into the street and try to keep them safe, but we shouldn't really worry about our kids getting hit by cars that are going over 25 miles an hour. So it is something that I wanted to raise to the council's attention. I don't know what can be done. I'm hoping something can be done. I would like to help foster that change, not only for my neighborhood, but for other neighborhoods, because I know speeding is a problem everywhere. So yeah, I think that is all I have on the matter. So thank you for your time, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Thank you, Samantha. Chief, would you like to speak to that a little bit about what kind of measures we're already doing and what maybe we can do?
Yeah, so as you speak, I message our traffic unit for some extra patrol as well as patrol. And then we'll also get our radar trailers out there, which will notify drivers of their current speed as well as collect data as far as date and time of vehicles and speeding, just so we can get a better idea of when it's happening, so we can be a little more effective in our enforcement. So that's the best way to start right there. So we're on it and moving forward.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, are there any other comments online? And one last call for people in the room? Okay, all right, we will close public comment. And then we will go ahead and move to, we're going to hold on to consent for a second. We're going to go to 14A, which is under general business, receive a report on the amending special assessment and community facilities district goals and policies.
I'm gonna introduce Brian Forbath, and then if Nita wants to jump in. So this has been something that's been on our to-do list as it relates to how the city administers CFD and CFD formations, and the process by which we do it, and the tools that are available to the city and developers to do so. Many cities, especially as they get larger than Lincoln, have decided to bring CFD formation and management in to the accounting and finance department. And there's a variety of reasons that Brian will explain are super important. But just so that you know who he is, Brian is our bond counsel, and he has represented the city for quite a while. And so Brian's involved in almost every single bond or CFD formation that we go through. He also advises us on legal matters as it relates to how bond funds are used, and was instrumental with Nita in cleaning up the kind of bond mess that we kind of got through over the last couple of years. So that's who he is, and represents a ton of cities and school districts and probably special districts too. And the idea we wanted tonight was to give you sort of a quick crash course on how this landscape looks today, and what we want to bring forward as a potential policy at some point in the future, so we can get some preliminary feedback from you, and then we'll do what we always do with fee programs and everything else, and we'll route them to our customers in the building community and their trade groups. Yep.
Hi, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Andriotta and council members. Brian Forbath from Stradling at Yaka. Thanks. Good to be here. It's been a little while since I've been back before you, so thanks for having me, and thank you very much for moving me up in the agenda. Much appreciated. So as Sean explained, the city has an existing CFD policy. It was adopted almost 50 years ago. And since that time, there's been a lot of changes in the development community, the development market. There's also been some updates in the Melrose Law, which is what brings about CFDs. And so the proposed, there's a draft that's before you tonight, a staff report that sort of outlines some of the high level changes on it. Some of it is just sort of to bring it in technical compliance with some changes that the Belarus law brought about within the last couple years. And then there's also a few important sort of policy sort of discussions or items for your consideration and input on that we're seeking on. And a couple of those are highlighted in it. One, there's been a growing trend in community facilities districts that developers want to finance rather than just public infrastructure. They want to finance their development impact fees. And so underneath state law and underneath federal tax law to have tax exempt bonds, what has to happen is if the city allows a developer to finance those development impact fees, the city then has to go actually spend those bond proceeds or those development impact fees on public capital improvements within a reasonably short period of time, roughly 3 years from the time that you collect it. And so many communities that I represent in Southern California and some others in Northern California have sort of started a program where, you know, if we're going to go finance these development impact fees for the developers, we're taking on a little added work for ourselves. We're taking on a little added risk in terms of tax exemption if we can't spend those monies in a short period of time. So there's been communities that have said, okay, well, developers, you like financing development impact fees because you get your money back sooner. You don't have to go through inspections of public improvements and have them approved and accepted by the city. You get the money back as you pay. So in exchange for that, we may want to charge a premium in connection with those development impact fees. And so we're going to, I have clients that'll check on, 20%, say, premium on a development impact fee. And then the city would then take that money and spend it on additional public improvements. And so right now, the city, because there's limited availability, limited assurances that you could spend all these different types of fees in a short period of time, it's really just the traffic mitigation fee that the city has been allowing developers to finance. But at some certain time, the city may expand that. And so this policy is one of the key sort of changes. And it doesn't say you have to charge a premium, but it says that in certain instances where we finance development impact fees, the city may charge a premium associated. So that's sort of a fundamental difference from the policy that was previously in case. Another consideration is that there's also been a growing trend in the development community to use conduit CFD issuers, essentially like the CMFA BOLD program or the SKIP program that the gentleman was speaking about, the PACE financing. Those programs are very useful programs. They're good programs, and they were originally intended in order to allow small developments to sort of pool together and get sort of the benefits of aggregation and reducing costs. Well, because of that, developers have sort of realized that, well, it's kind of nice having a third party in Sacramento or in Orange County or whether or not the city having control of the purse strings and the issuance of bonds. Not to say the city's not involved in the negotiations, involved in the process, but ultimately the issuance of bonds is controlled by somebody else besides the city. And so there's been a trend where it's grown beyond just these small little infill communities that developers now want to have their whole entire master plan community done by a third party entity. And by doing that, again, there's certain instances where, there's things that happen on a lifelong, large master plan community, and there's negotiations, discussions along the way with developers in the city about what was supposed to be completed, what needs to be completed, different costs associated with that. And by removing the city from the CFD process in that way, it sort of takes a tool off the city councils, the city managers' plate in terms of using in order to sort of make sure that the developer is doing what the city needs it to do to fulfill its promises and obligations on the project. So that's another aspect of this proposed policy here. It essentially would say that it would essentially prohibit third-party CFD issuers for any development over 100 units. Again, it's a policy. Policy could be waived. There's always instances where, for whatever variety of reasons that the council may decide, that's the right thing for BOLD or CSCDA or somebody else to use this policy, and you could waive that in any instance you want. And then I think the other aspect of it is it sort of updates the application process, charges a more normal fee for the process of applying and working through the CFD application up to $70,000. So there's a form attached to it. And there's some other just rather technical developments in it. One of the other things that wasn't in your old policy that's in this new policy is, again, in the instances of a deteriorating real estate market, a developer that's going to issue bonds on largely undeveloped property at a very low value to 3-to-1 value to lien without any development in it, it does say in here that the city may, in those situations, consider requiring some sort of credit enhancement or other security measures from the developer to issue those bonds. That was not in your prior policy. Again, not saying something that you have to do that. It's not saying that you must do that or you need to do that, but it just provides it in a policy as a framework for the council and for staff to review and look at. And again, I think one of the other aspects of sort of bringing some of this in-house, you know, your neighbors, Roseville, they do this all internally. They don't really allow bold CSCDA, at least I'm aware of, maybe in limited circumstances. And because of the administrative fees that they collect annually from each of the CFDs, which is usually $20,000 to $30,000 a year, they actually fund staff level funding to monitor, you know, and administer the CFDs in-house. And that would be something, again, I think the staff report mentions this, but there's currently 10 bold CFDs that have been formed in the city already. And some of those have multiple improvement areas. There's 2 skip CFDs. So again, you know, had that been brought in-house, that's $300,000 or $400,000 of administrative revenues. You know, a lot of it, some of it does go to actually administer the CFD and outside consultants on it, but there's money in-house for the city to help fund positions to oversee that and build internal infrastructure. And so again, there's not an action item here tonight. It was just sort of to bring this forward to you all to explain sort of what's behind the policy, what's driving it. If you all have any feedback, we'd love to hear it, and we'll take that, you know, into consideration and bring a draft back to you all. And then I think, as Sean mentioned, the plan is I think they were going to make this available to BIA to get their input and other folks, and then bring it back to you at a later meeting for approval. And with that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions or if anybody has.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the council?
Yeah. So can you help me understand what flexibility there is or isn't between the 2 third-party skip and bold, and is there any difference between the 2 of them? But is there anything that the third party can do that an internal can't, or vice versa, in terms of what a developer can include or not include in them?
Yeah, they're essentially, the Skip and Bold are very similar programs. Skip was essentially set up to be just for assessment districts, and Bold was for community facilities districts. I believe Skip has now morphed and allows community facilities districts too. I believe all of the Skip deals in the city are assessment districts though, and not CFDs. It's been a more recent development for them. Essentially, what the city does, the city authorized CMFA to allow for the formation of CFDs within its boundaries. And so there's really no legal difference between a CMFA CFD versus a city CFD, other than there's additional third-party consultants and maybe additional costs associated with forming that. There's city review, there's third-party costs, there's developer costs associated with it.
So it sounds like there's like a formation process difference, but in terms of the makeup of the CFD and what can and can't be included in the terms that can and cannot be included, it's indifferent who's the administrator.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in terms of who is the administrator, if you have the terms of the CFD, does it really matter who's administering it? Like, is the ability to enforce the terms the same, whether it's third party or internal, by the parties of the CFD?
Yeah, yes and no. I think, you know, the CMFA controls the bond issuance process. There's a development team that works with the city's involved in that process. And I don't think the city's gotten to the point in any of the negotiations that we've been on when there's been an actual dispute with the developer on things. So everything's gone smoothly. But, you know, the city doesn't necessarily control all of the release of bond funds and so forth. There's an acquisition agreement that the city enters into the developer that sort of sets forth the terms and conditions pursuant to which the developer gets reimbursed. But at the end of the day, you know, having the city have control over the issuance process and the timing of it could be valuable or not to the city in terms of the ultimate negotiations with the developer or how they want to see the development go forward.
As you mentioned, that internal gives the city some additional tools. I'm just
Right.
trying to understand what those tools are compared to the third party.
Yeah, I think it's, the city is more directly, the bond issuance will come back to the city council. When we go to issue bonds, if the city CFD, I or whoever your bond counsel at that time will be in front of you with all the documentations, and we're gonna have resolution parameters that's gonna say, you're gonna issue bonds on behalf of the CFD in the amount of $5 million. Somebody's gonna get up and explain to you what all the improvements are and everything associated with it. That process doesn't happen now. Instead, it's off at the CMAFA or CSCDA boards in Sacramento, Orange County, or wherever they are that they're meeting. And all that you are improving is just the form of the acquisition agreement, which sets forth the improvements to be approved. Yeah.
Okay. So two more quick questions, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
The first one is, so you have these two different ways of forming it. What are the relative cost difference between doing it third party and doing it internally generally?
Yeah.
And I assume this is bore by the taxpayer who's paying the bonds back, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's either borne by the taxpayer or borne by the developer. I mean, and on all honesty, most of these developments sort of have a fixed amount of taxing capacity that could be achieved, right? They're gonna have it's gonna be based on 1.8% effective tax rate or 2% effective tax rate, your special taxes on. And so, if there's more costs in terms of these third-party programs, there's probably less bond proceeds available for the developer to get reimbursed. Doesn't necessarily mean that the property owners are saving money per se. But I think what's important is when those bonds, every 10 years, those bonds are callable. And at that point in time, there's going to be an opportunity to refund those bonds for debt service savings. And that will be a decision of the city council at that point in time, like how you want to apply those savings and how you want to move forward with that refunding versus having a third party in charge of it. 'Cause you'll be out of the picture on that.
Right. So it sounds like it's a little more expensive of a third party formation than internal. Is that? I hear that
Correct,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Then my last question was, in terms of when you decide to do, I'm going to create a CFD and it's in place and ready to go, is there any difference in the timeline of doing it internal versus third party?
No, I don't believe so. I think the developers would probably say that these third-party programs are very streamlined and they can make it very efficiently. But that said, I think the city council and the city staff could become very streamlined in doing this very efficiently as well.
Thank you.
Answered most of my questions, or you asked most of my questions. So that's good. You said Roseville does this already and they don't use both for any, even the
Not that I'm
smaller ones?
aware of. I mean, I'm not bond counsel of the city of Roseville, but I'm underwriters counsel on basically all their transactions, and they do 4 or 5 of them a year, and I'm not aware of any bold transactions in Roseville, but.
How typical and common is it for cities? Is this more common practice for cities to do this? Is it more the exception that we aren't and we're having third parties administer?
It sort of depends, I'll be honest with you. This is sort of a newer phenomenon in the last couple years. It's
Okay.
historically, cities and counties, special districts always form their own CFDs, and there are very few sort of conduit issuers for CFDs. And these conduit issuer programs have become very successful. The developers like them, one, for the streamline, and I think two, the fact that it takes the city and city staff out of some of the decision-making process of it.
Okay. So it is a newer phenomenon, but it is not atypical.
It's not atypical, no. In some, some jurisdictions just, they won't allow it. And there's some that just say, we're too busy with our staff doesn't have time to do this. We don't care. We're fine abdicating sort of responsibility to this, to these third-party JPAs, and they serve a purpose.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Nita. If we bring this in-house, do we need additional staff?
No, we've actually been working towards hiring additional staff to be able to accomplish these tasks. We didn't want to take it on and say, well, okay, well, now we'll get started on hiring folks. So we added a second financial analyst in our budget team. So both of the analysts will be, and our budget, our finance manager, who is our budget guru, will be part of this team, as well as the admin analyst that we just offered a position to that reports directly to the finance director, as well as myself, and then our partners in CVD will be, we already have agreements with obviously bond counsel, our municipal finance officer. We have lines and communications and past relationships with the consultant who is the subject matter expert on forming CFDs, Sudin Goodwin with Goodwin and Associates. And so we already have those resources, right, at our disposal.
Sounds like a win-win.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, you know, this is really an opportunity to save the taxpayers a few dollars when CFDs are formed, because those expenses are rolled into the costs that are passed along to homeowners.
Well, too, and I think that it'll allow us to represent the community better in a more direct way than just allowing somebody else to do. Puts a little bit more work on our plate, but I think it's more beneficial for the community to do it that way. I'm looking forward to hear what VIA has to say about it and what input they all have.
Well, I think their feeling is that they want all options on the table, right? They want to be able to pick and choose which one they want and not to be boxed into just letting the city handle it. So my question is, what is the main objection for a developer to just do it in-house for the city? Like, because from what I understand, so if we're saving money by keeping in-house, but also what was said to me was, then if it is in-house, there might be other costs for the developer that's still going to get passed on to the home buyer. So I'm just trying to understand from their perspective, what's the objection for just allowing the city to handle it as opposed to all options on the table?
I'll give you my perspective and
Yeah.
they'll have to answer that directly. My perspective is it's probably three things. Change. Change is scary. It's different. Just to be very fair, Lincoln has not always managed its finances in the best way. And so I don't blame any individual that would be concerned that this additional responsibility and authority could get, tangled up down the road. So that's two. Although I think that at this point, we've put that to bed.
I think we have.
Third, and probably most importantly, what I've been told by some developers is that they like the idea of this sort of semi-distant third party that doesn't have any of the local community hang up. No offense to the city council, but this sort of unbiased third party just processing, and that creates, from their perspective, stability, which is, if you talk to any developer, they care about two things more than anything else: stability and timeliness. So those would probably be the things you would hear. And I don't think it needs to be an either or, an indictment of our ability to manage them. I think what we need to do is just make sure that the policy makes sense and is fair and clear. And that's the great thing about policies. If for some reason it doesn't work for us, or you're getting phone calls every other week from some angry developer about this policy, then council can change it anytime you'd like.
I had one more question.
go ahead.
Speaking of timeliness, do you feel that we would be at least the same pace as
Yeah,
a third
because
party?
the initial formation is handled with, like I said, a stable of consultants, right? Where you're having meetings with your bond counsel, your underwriter, your MFA, your CFD consultant, and city staff, right? And that would still occur, and the developer. And that process would be essentially the same. We just wouldn't be using CMFA. But as Brian indicated, he works with other agencies. He writes all the documents that are required for the formation on a regular basis. There's a timetable to the formation with public hearings that have to be held. You kind of march along as long as the developer is providing the information in a timely manner. You just march along and you form the CFD. It's not rocket science, right? So that initial formation is done with the same people that are doing it now through CMFA. It's just minus the additional fees of CMFA and the CMFA specific individuals.
Yeah, I see the benefit for sure in lowering the cost that, that in turn would be lowering our taxpayers. And it seems like that's always the case with consulting anyway. You're always paying a little bit more for that convenience. But if we can do it and save taxpayer money, then I think that that's very enticing and always, one of our priorities. And of course, I want to hear what the BIA has to say as well, but
And I would say
overall, it seems like a
ultimately,
win-win.
it helps the developers because, they have a threshold, right? When they're forming a CFD, that they want to keep that expense ratio to the house price. And so anything that we can do to lower the cost of doing the thing, building the infrastructure, forming the CFD, pulling the bonds, helps them keep that ratio. So yes, it's a change. It's something different that they haven't done with this city before. But I think that ultimately it is a benefit to them as well as a benefit to the community members.
One other thing I would just add is good and bad. It's going to provide you all with a lot more insight about the number of CFDs and when they're formed in the process, because we'll be coming here having, for every CFD formation, there's a resolution of intention, there's a public hearing, and there's going to be an election that'll be held here in the council chambers by the developers and every time we form one of these things. So again, good about it, it's going to take up council time to do that, staff time to do it. But it'll also provide you with insight as to, okay, the CFD is being formed, the CFD is being formed, here's the amount of bonds that are issued, here's the taxes, the tax rates that are going in these new areas, these new developments. That'll be part of every staff report that you review.
Well, and it's great that there will be less mystery. I think hopefully we'll have more transparency amongst us and understanding the finances and the nuts and bolts as well as the residents. So yeah, it takes away the mystery, which is nice, as well as giving us a little bit more control.
Okay, let's open this up for public comment on this item. Is there anybody in the room that would like to make a comment? Yeah, I know. Yeah. Not this one. Okay, anybody online?
We're having just a technical difficulty over here. I see Hope frantically trying to
So
get back into
we
Zoom.
do have, Zoom just went down on me,
Uh-oh.
but we do have Jeff Short who would like to make a comment. So let's see if our IT guys can
I saw a couple of
unmute
hands raised
him,
when we
or
first
maybe.
started this, so. That's fine.
Jen.
We can take a moment to get it back up. We're,
Okay, thanks.
yeah. All right, thank you for your patience while we get our Zoom. Okay, go ahead, Jeff, welcome.
Thank you, and apologies for not being able to work it out to be there in person tonight, especially since I started my day in that building this morning, presenting to the Chamber's Government Relations meeting, mostly on the adverse impacts of government fees on housing affordability. And so to that end, I do applaud the city's attempts to save new homeowners on their property tax bill. That is something our members often take into account when they decide how best to fund their infrastructure and impact fees as well. However, those decisions must also be balanced with other important concerns, including the upfront cost of new homes and the ability to deliver needed infrastructure and desired amenities for those new communities. So to that end, we actually would request that each development remain able to decide which way makes sense for that particular project to finance their infrastructure and fees in a way that balances these concerns and delivers the financing in an efficient and reliable and fair way. Whether that is internal with the city or through either the SKIP or BOLD program, both of which we support equally at the BIA. We would submit that those programs are generally much more consistent than jurisdictions in allowing bond issuance to happen more quickly. Roseville's been mentioned a few times. I would note that Roseville issues almost as many bonds internally as these programs do. That is, I won't quite say unique, but incredibly rare among cities statewide that they issue that many bonds internally. We don't see others doing that. I also would politely dispute, Sean, that our concern is over fear of change. In fact, as a rule, we do request that all jurisdictions allow CFDs through both Bold and Skip, which, as noted, is actually the newer and we would submit more creative approach. So I very much appreciate the collaboration with city staff and working with us. I look forward to working toward a flexible, safe, and fair policy for the development industry, the city, and of course, your future residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that. Was there, I know was there another hand that was raised on Zoom, or we don't know? No, no one else? Okay. Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we'll bring it back up. Well, unless there's other comments or questions from the council, thank you, Brian. Really appreciate the information. We appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you for moving me up too. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Okay, good. Awesome. Okay, let's go back to our consent agenda. So here's what we're going to do. We are, well, first let me ask if the council has a consent agenda that they would like to pull. Okay.
Wanted to pull 12E.
12E. Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna talk about that anyway.
Oh,
We don't
okay.
actually have to pull it. We can, yeah. So thank you for that. Yeah, I've got it pulled up right here. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We don't allow the public to pull an item, but we are going to allow, there's a couple questions on 12D. So, we'll start with Fran online. We'll let her go first. Fran, if you're still there, you can unmute and, ask your question on item 12D on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Well, it was very interesting. It was 133 pages and I got through most of it. I was looking for a street light and I found one on sheet C13 of 35, about page 130, but it's in the housing development. It's not out at 193 in Oak Tree Lane. And if you've been down that road lately, nothing's happened on that road for a couple of weeks. The trucks, the tractors are all in the same place. The road looks the same. Nobody's working. And one of the things is that work road is still open. And at night, you have to turn to stay on the paved part of Oak Tree Lane. Leaving
Fran, I realize that, and I agree with you, but do you have an actual question for this particular item? And I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding you.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know how to speak to it. My question is, yes, is there a timeline for the street light and that the signal light at 193 and Oak Tree Lane? That's my main question. And the other one is, why can't the work people put something to close off that work road so that people don't drive into it instead of turning to stay on the paved road? And they did have a sign up for a while. It said road closed, but then the storm sort of knocked it over and they didn't put it back up again.
Well, unless I'm missing something here, I think that probably would have been a better regular public comment question. This is not really relevant to this item, but go ahead, Sean.
Just really quickly. So no difference in the timeline that we've already stated a few times. Early, mid-summer, likely. That right now what's happening is they're running water lines under the roadway that exists there. That's the first step. Next steps are public improvements. They're top side, and then you'll see the light mast go up. So, and then on the road closure component, we'll contact the builder and just remind them to make sure it's very clear not to enter that roadway. And the third and final one, so Fran and I have been communicating about this, about some of the sort of the feeling of unsafety at that intersection. And I've contacted the church, or the Catholic church there. And what it appears that I'm hearing for the most part is it's more related to where the K rails, which are the large cement barriers on the northern side of Highway 193, if you've ever driven on a highway anywhere that is in construction, you'll notice that that all construction projects place the K rails very, very close to the lane of travel. That's by design. It's intentional. One, slows traffic in that area because you don't have as much room to maneuver. But what I was told by one of our consultants is that they're getting fairly close to a point where they're going to be able to remove portions of those K rails and allow the work to continue in earnest. We also had Coastland go out and laser in both directions to make sure the lines of sight when you're either taking a right-hand turn or a left-hand turn out of Oak Tree Lane were appropriate and up to current engineering standards, which they are. So I think most of those issues are sort of dealt with at this point. What I'm working on suggesting to the Catholic Diocese is some sort of newsletter or notice that I could give to them to pass out to their constituency and also the church right around the corner, that suggests that if you're concerned about left-hand turns off of Oak Tree Lane heading back into town and you don't feel comfortable with that, it's absolutely appropriate and okay for you to take a right-hand turn and head down to Turkey Creek Golf Course or Turkey Creek Subdivision, hit a U-turn and come back that way if it makes you feel comfortable, or go all the way down to Sierra College and back side of Lincoln, just in this interim period while they're getting that done. So hopefully that answers most of the questions.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll come back to the actual item here. First person who has a question is Bob MG. So come on up, you can ask your question on this. And are you Michael?
Michael.
Okay, so you can just stand here and then you can ask your question right after.
Good.
Go ahead.
Well, it's more than a question. but
Okay.
Anyhow, I am Bob MG and this is Michael Crimley.
Okay.
By the way, Mike is a 50-year experience in the architecture business and I am not. Anyhow, we represent St. Joseph's Church, their building committee. It's Mike and myself and two other people. And as some of you may know, St. Joseph's Church moved from downtown Lincoln about 2008 and on 34 acres. And we have quite a complex. We have 6,000 registered parishioners and it's growing every day. Now, we were out there all by ourselves, for a number of years, and all of a sudden we are swamped with new homes. And what we want to talk about tonight is Oak Tree Lane. And, not the subject that just came up, but we want to talk about how you get into our parking lots and out safely and on time. We have right now 3 entrances and 3 exits. And when you could enter from the north and the south on each of those 3. We understand that when they finish Oak Tree Lane, we're going to be reduced to 1 entrance, 3 entrances, but only 1 exit that will go up north. Otherwise, we have to go down where Hidden Hills are. And there's much not down there. So anyhow, we want to talk about that. It's going to really put us in a bottleneck with our parishioners because we're growing every day. We have a school budding, lots of recreation places. And we have, on weekends, we have 4 services with several hundred cars at each one. So it's somewhat easy to get in, but getting out is going to be very difficult. By the way, we are also celebrating our 100th anniversary this year. So we've been around a long time and we plan to be there a lot longer. So Mike is going to explain from an engineering viewpoint his recommendation or our recommendation on how we think Oak Tree Lane should be organized and built. By the way, to our knowledge, nobody from the city has approached anybody at our religious site regarding how many people do you have, how many vehicles do you have, and to our knowledge, they're planning the road on the data that was developed in 2003. And quite honestly, we don't know who to contact at the city regarding this. And quite honestly, we have from one of your associate engineers exactly what I said in writing.
Okay.
So we need help.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
My name is Michael Krempley. I live at 5520 Johnson Drive, Lincoln. I'm here as a concerned parishioner for St. Joseph's Parish. As Robert said, I have a lot of experience. I've been a licensed architect for 50 years and working on multiple projects of all kinds, but it gives me the opportunity, when Bob asked me to be on this committee, to take a look at what's going on with the development of this Oak Tree Lane. And I want to speak to this issue specifically, call attention to, after studying the improvement plans, the current design for a portion of Oak Tree Lane, and I'm speaking specifically from the south property line of St. Joseph's property up to the 193 intersection. And the reason that we're concerned with that is because there doesn't seem to be any problem with traffic going from our parking lots going south. But with the current design that I see for Oak Tree Lane improvements, there does not appear to be any traffic or left turn merge lanes or multiple traffic lanes, because there's going to be a lot more traffic coming from the south once those the road connects to 193 and the developments, future developments, actually some of them are going on now, housing developments that will add to our parishional load and their difficulty of getting in and out. More specifically, we're concerned with the lack of left turn lanes, the lack of traffic lanes going from handling the traffic from the south going towards Oak Tree Lane, or not Oak Tree Lane, but where the Oak Tree Lane and 193 intersection. And our traffic load on a typical mass is 500 cars plus. And that happens on Sunday 3 times a day. Depending on the traffic on 193 or Oak Tree Lane coming from the south, it would make it very difficult for us to get out of our parking lots to go north. So currently, there's 3 driveways, as Bob said, but that would make it easy for people coming out and making right turns. So that's not the issue. It's people who are coming out of our parking lots to go north towards 193. At the same time, avoiding all the traffic that's going to be coming down Oak Tree Lane in the future, and being able to merge safely or give additional lanes for traffic that wants to bypass our left turners and continue on their way.
Okay. Go ahead and wrap up real quick if you can.
As Robert said, our occupancy figures were originally 600. This is 22 years ago for the church. That was upgraded to 1,000 and probably more, especially if there's a school there in the future. So we ask that your council postpone approval of the design for that portion of Oak Tree Lane from the church south property line north to Highway 93 until a thorough traffic safety investigation making left turns onto Oak Tree Lane is addressed with appropriate design changes to the Oak Tree Lane improvement plans.
Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for speaking. I really appreciate it. Okay. I know we've talked about this before and I am a little confused, why when this project is done, it's going to be narrowed down. So I don't know if Vin wants to talk about it or if you want to talk about it just real briefly, just kind of give us a, thank you.
Well, with the construction of Oak Tree Lane is originally it was contemplated to head east and connect to Sierra College Boulevard, right? Now it's actually going to loop
Sir, go ahead and have a seat. We're not going to talk, and yeah, we're going to answer your questions and we're going to talk about it, and public comment is closed on it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, now Oak Tree Lane is going to be like a horseshoe loop that heads back north and connect to State Route 193, right? So the two connection points at 193 will be fully signalized. That makes those two intersections a lot safer for movements in all directions, right? Now, as it currently stands, what you're seeing right now in its current phase of construction with all the delays due to weather and PG&E, the temporary road you see pavement out there is actually not in the ultimate location. It's actually temporary access to bypass around all the heavy undergrounds that's being constructed right now. And as construction progresses, you're going to see improvements along both the south side and the north side of 193. That's why it's going to take a while, probably through the summer and most likely the fall for all the improvements to go in. Now, I think St. Joseph's has raised some points. I believe, with the entitlements that went in, much of this has been studied and analyzed. As a city engineer, I've given Kaylee, our associate engineer, direction that I would welcome a meeting with St. Joseph's to discuss any concerns that they may have. Happy to open up the improvement plans and look at the access points. If there are minor improvements, adjustments we can make during construction, right, as it occurs, we're happy to do that. I'm, fairly confident that what we have in design works and it's safer than current conditions.
Thank you, Ben.
And just to add to that, one other component that I think we need to remember is the ultimate, the whole concept of the improvements, whether it be the intersection at 193 and Oak or how the horseshoe, I guess we're calling it, works, undoubtedly will make it a safer scenario than exists prior to any development occurring out there. You had an uncontrolled intersection on a highway that, could be very busy at certain times. And so net is positive from our perspective. But if, we'd love to sit down and go through the details.
Okay. So my question here is, I don't necessarily want to pull this and hold up the rest of the approving of the plan, but I also want to make sure that our residents feel safe that we are going to follow through with that, because I can already, hear the wheels spinning. Well, if you approve it, then there's no guarantee you're going to listen to us. So Tony, did you want to come speak to this? I could see you back there jumping out of your seat. Okay. Clear it up for us.
Tony Frazier with Frazier Design Group and the engineer on this project. We appreciate that you're taking the time tonight to consider, hopefully, this consent item move forward. In front of you, it's the final map, which is just the project's been approved already. It's not Oak Tree Lane. Oak Tree Lane is part of Village One.
Right.
Improvement that the project is building. And also, we're not building the entire Oak Tree Lane, not even in front of the church. In front of the church there's improvement underground, but also there's ultimate improvement that's going to be happening. On the north side is ultimate, but as you come down toward the culverts, it necks down back to existing and then picks up past the county road or the county access. Ultimately, there's going to be widening and there'll be island and so forth. But also keep in mind that the studies were done part of DKS, which work with the city on traffic and analyzing everything. If there are specific project with the city policies that if the church require maybe signal to allow better movement, that could be studied, then they will be proposing to do that and they can do it, like similar to a unique commercials that may require signal on a road that if it's considered that's needed, then that could be done for that specific project. But that the project as a whole, it's not needed. And as Vin mentioned, ultimately, the right turn movement will continue to 193, which is the safest than today because they don't have to go on a 2-lane road to go north. And then if you're coming down to them, there's going to be more protection for them. But ultimately, again, the next phase of the widening will be island, will be left turn pockets in those islands. But it's not happening today. And again, the map moving forward doesn't have control over what's being built. It's being followed as phase 1, there'll be phase 2, phase 3. And I'll be glad to answer any question. And I'll be glad to sit down with them over the plan too, with Vin
Great.
and go over it.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments on this one?
No, I just wanted to echo that, what you said, making sure that the concerns of the parishioners are taken into consideration in so much that if there's a requirement for more work to be done there, that because we don't want to hold up the project, we want to make sure that there's still leeway for that. That's all I was.
Right.
gonna echo.
Well, and to the gentleman's point earlier about how long St. Joseph's has been out there, Lincoln Christian Life Center, which is sitting right on 193, right down from Oak Tree Lane, it's been out there even longer. And so there's concern for them too. So we will make sure that the road is safe, that it's operational and efficient. And so, but that's not really what this item is right now. So, but we hear you and we'll make sure that it's done correctly, okay? Okay, so that takes care of, there's nobody online for this, right? Hope, okay. So that's 12D. I want to jump to 12E really quickly, just to recognize the new members of our committees that we interviewed and appointed, and we're very excited about these. We've got Clara Ellis, who is going to be on our airport committee, Jeremy Avant, who's on our economic development committee, and Timothy Jackson, who is going to be our new planning commissioner. And so if you are here tonight, would you stand up? I see Clara and Tim. And awesome. Welcome. Thank you very much for being willing to serve. Appreciate that. Okay. Yep, go right ahead. Yep. Oh, that's okay. Yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to say welcome, and I'm really excited. I'm thrilled that we have such a great group of new committee and commissioners that I am confident are going to strengthen our city's integrity, and you're going to be a great asset, and everybody's going to love you.
and we appreciate all residents who step up, apply, interview, and take the time to help lead our city. So welcome and thank you very much. Okay, so that concludes all our questions and comments for consent. I will take a motion to approve our entire consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Reedy,
Yes.
Councilmember Pearl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Eklund,
Yes.
Mayor Andriata.
Yes. Okay, thank you, everybody, for that. I think that went pretty smoothly. Okay, we've already covered 14A. Let's go to 14B under general business. Receive an update on citywide grazing services.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this is sort of a discussion, direction, generalized, which way we want to go kind of item. And the reason I would have, typically we would have just dealt with this in the budget and you would have seen some sort of notation, or we would have made an alternative to your budget discussion. But as Scott reminded me the other day, we can't wait that long because grazing is due to start like now. So here is in a very brief nutshell where we're at. The city has, Scott let me know today that the city has not always grazed. And then once we started to do it, it was mostly in those beginning days for sort of rangeland management and aesthetic reasons, not so much for some of the reasons that it has become important, which is fire protection. And for many years, Scott and his team managed the contractors we have very financially responsibly, and we got pretty reasonable deals. So you could see in your report that for many years we were paying, well, it was less than $214,000, but we were paying roughly that amount for the entirety of the grazing area of the community, which in a moment you'll see a map on the big screen. I won't go into all of the labor-related reasons why that's changed, but suffice to say that the state and the Labor Commission were made aware of an overtime issue, not the city's issue, it's the contractor's issue that required that the folks that are on site with those animals are paid for the time they're on site, including overtime, which was not occurring prior to that. So that said, that increases the cost of our grazing needs significantly. If we were to continue to graze at what was historically current levels, everywhere we had, that's red up there on your map there, that would be an increase of about $300,000 a year. Now, in the scope of our total budget, I wouldn't be concerned about that, but unfortunately, it would be wrong and irresponsible to raise CFD and LLD rates proportionally to cover that $300,000 in a year or even 2 or even 3 year basis. It would change people's amount they're paying on their property tax bill significantly. So when Scott became aware, we've been battling this for about a year. Last year we did kind of not a bare minimum, but we hit all of the areas that were super important and just sort of said, we'll figure this out. And we were waiting to make sure that this was going to stick, and it has stuck as it relates to cost. And so this year, the concern is that we need to get started here pretty quickly. And we've outlined a couple of options for you, and then have had, just today, actually, Scott and I had some really lengthy conversations with Chief Mejia and Alves, who have been diving into the fire map issue, and it's a sensitive matter at this moment because people connect fire breaks and grazing to fire risk. And that's not necessarily true, and I'll tell you why in a second. But what we suggested at time of report is, well, if council just wanted to do it all, because you just want to do it all, what would we do? Well, the only method I can think of is that we would have to supplement from the general fund, $300,000 yearly. Now, I could see every couple years doing that, and we plan for it financially. To take that hit each year, multiply that times 10 years, that's $3 million you could have spent on important public safety needs, let's say, or recreation or library, whatever. I don't like it from a fiscal perspective. So then we started thinking, okay, what are alternatives? Well, you see option 2 in your report is we could do 70% of the remainder of the open space in addition to what we were going to do as bare minimum. And we pay a little bit less than twice as much as we're paying now, about another little less than $200,000. And don't love that option either. And then when we discussed today with Chief Mejia, one of the things that we learned was all of the areas which Scott's going to get up and show you those areas that we are going to do under the first option, the $214,000, our current budgeted amount, will address all of those areas where Chief and others are concerned about potential fire risk. So not only do we graze all of those areas, but that does not include the time, effort, and money that we spend actually doing disking and fire breaks. 30 feet, Scott?
Correct.
Yeah, 30 feet from any sensitive area. So what we're proposing, this is not much to do about nothing, but it's a very important thing because of how sensitive the fire issue is at the moment. And we just want council to be aware of something that has the potential to be a real issue down the road. We would recommend that we stick with our $214,000 budget this year. We do all of those areas. Chief Mejia has said that he's very comfortable with what Scott has laid out in front of him. And then we work on 2 things after this. We work on some sort of financial model where we can incrementally increase some of those districts that can be increased to address this issue, 1. And 2 is really work harder, which we haven't always done, on the private property owners that own swaths of land that are grassland that are not managing them appropriately. And so that's going to require enforcement. And I think we were probably pretty reasonable and sensitive to the fact that we don't want to go out and find people in the past, but we're in a different position now. If we are going to have to invest this kind of money, and a private property owner has to manage their property as well, that we're only as best as our weakest moment, right? So Scott, you want to talk them through
Sure. So the map that is on the screen now, currently, we will be grazing like 100 feet behind all the homes. So every perimeter that you see here, the top of the screen, the MRs, the 12 Bridges area down at the lower part of the screen. Around the perimeters all the way around is about 100 feet. All those areas. Everything else will be left. And that's at the 214,841.
And what you don't see here is the two HOAs that graze their own properties. So for example, Del Webb, Sun City, they do their own grazing. And Catavadera does its own grazing. And so Chief Mejia is already reaching out to those HOAs and making sure that, hey, when you sign up for your deal this year, make sure you're doing these things so we can mitigate the risk as best we can. And the other thing that we just don't know the answer to is some of these areas that are maybe not really fire risk, that the one I've been using in all my examples with everybody is the area of grassland that's off of Lincoln Boulevard when you come off of Highway 65, just to your right by the rodeo ground, sort of. We don't really know if we leave that ungrazed for a year or two, if there's any discernible aesthetic difference at all, because it's been a real long time. Scott, I don't know if we talked about that, but do you have a thought on that?
No, other than, I mean, we graze it every year since 2008, so nobody knows what.
Yeah. What we do know is that these natural grasses do have a maximum height, and like all other grass, they die in the late summer and gray and then fall down and new grass comes up. So the settings aesthetics aside for a moment, the major downside we see is that there's a benefit ecologically to grazing. There just is. They trample things that you don't want there. They leave droppings behind that fertilize the soil, which then the circle of life kind of thing. So I think next time we return to you, we will have a little bit better of an idea about, hey, it really is super important that we find the resources to do that, or maybe we find that it's not that important and we just need to do it once every 3 years, let's say, or something like that.
Agree with that. Yeah.
But then Scott is really a subject matter expert. I'm just posing as one. So if you have questions, he's probably best to answer.
I will say that based on CAL FIRE's map, we are only touching probably a very small amount of, I want to say maybe out by Foskett Park is on that map, the high density map. And then as well as over by Fire Station 33. So we're currently, all of our areas are basically out of their map area, other than 2 of them, so.
And Chief Mejia isn't here tonight to speak on this specific thing, but one thing he did tell me on the phone is that if the council was going to pull $300,000 on a yearly basis out of the general fund to do some of these areas that he's not concerned about, since the public safety department is such a big component of the general fund, it's like, I know that's not money that would just come to us, but we could certainly use it on fire related things that would be much more valuable than, grazing some of these areas. So, plug for him.
And I think Sean mentioned this, but not only are we going to graze this 100 feet behind all of the homes that are behind the open space, we also come back behind that with hand crews, and we do 30 feet on top of that down to really nothing. So it really reduces the fire danger. And every year we don't do it, that increases the fuel when we don't graze. So 3 years, I would say, would probably be my max before we would go back out and graze the entire thing.
Thank you. Well, even though the grazing is like my favorite time of year because it's so fun, I don't see a world right now where our general fund can sustain that extra cost every year. So questions, comments from?
I just want to make sure that by sticking with option 1, we're not setting us up for any liability issues. It doesn't sound like we are.
That probably is more of a city attorney question, although it's nearly impossible for anyone to answer.
Yeah.
But I think what we would say is that if we're doing our duty to make sure that the areas that are risk areas are addressed, as Scott said, then we've done our duty as far as that's concerned.
There's also a procedure that we've never really looked at here, but that I've used in other jurisdictions where there are actually statutes where we can put property owners on notice and require them to handle their property in lieu of the city doing it for them. And we would have to have a public hearing, provide notice of those assessor parcel numbers, and then to the extent the city ultimately at some point had to go in and do that work for them, we could do a real property assessment and put a tax lien on their property, which the city would get paid first out of. So there's other avenues that we can look at for enforcement as well going forward.
Questions, comments?
No, I would just comment that I am comfortable with option one, and when you're noodling alternatives, if the internal option is something we look at more.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that for a moment? Okay. We were brainstorming in my office one day about like, what if there was just some way that we could create some sort of goat farm where we just had our own goats that went out and did it and saved some money that way. And
Yeah, I like
it's
that
actually,
idea.
it's actually really not a horrible idea because I don't see any point where we're not going to graze. I mean, it just kind of seems.
Yeah, and just so everybody understands the dynamic of the grazing, there's about 9,000 head of sheep and goats out there. So, and that's to do that within about a 3.5 month period. So we'd have to have a large amount of animals. Yeah.
Well, we'll promote you to goat herder. How about
Oh.
that?
Or sheep herder.
I'll be
Yeah.
something more tomorrow. I'm sure somebody will come up with something for
We
me.
can
so
keep them out at the
not a
Lincoln Farm
surprise.
too.
Yes, yeah, that's great. Any other questions or comments?
So you just need a business plan for.
Scott told me earlier he wants to be director of goat services.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Can I be assistant?
I love
I would
it.
like to be the assistant.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
You're hired.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, any public comment on this item? Anybody online? Okay, all right. Yeah, so this is not action, it's just information and consensus of.
Yeah,
this
just
direction.
unless anybody has a major serious concern with option one, we'll roll with that this
No, I
spring
think
as we get
that's great.
started, and then budget time, we'll talk more.
Yeah, great. Thank you,
Thank
Scott.
you.
Appreciate you. Awesome. All right. Yeah, moving along. Item 14C, presentation of a public art proposal by Janet Ficknick of the Art League of Lincoln, and adopt resolution approving the placement of a public art projects to be installed by the Art League of Lincoln at the Art League of Lincoln's building located at 586th Street.
Thank you. So I'm going to introduce Janet, who has become kind of my partner and contact over at the Art League in addition to others. And she contacted me the other day and said, hey, I really need this to get on city council. We have this really neat project and we want to move forward with this, this clay pipe installation. And after I got done with a bunch of other things, I sat down and I had assumed that it was related to our ARPA project, which they're also running for us, but it's not. It's something actually really interesting, different, and it's funded through 2 other grant programs, California Arts Council Creative Youth Development Program and the Placer Community Foundation. And I think it's best for her to explain how it all came about.
Thank you, Sean.
You can pull that down. There you go.
Sorry, I'm short-ish. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. So yes, I've been working on this grant-funded program for the last year, and in the fall it was awarded. And so we hit the ground running. 2 schools were targeted. Both of the schools were providing arts instruction in the classroom under the auspices of Prop 28, although these are separately funded grant programs. In addition to providing the arts support in the school, we are doing a added public art program. So that involves 2 features. One of them will be painted Gliding McBean pipes, which will be on a platform in front of the City Hall here, right across the street for you to enjoy. It'll be 3 pipes, and they'll be approximately 2.5 feet. There'll be a little bit of a rise off the street, so they won't be too tall. And they're going to be approximately 14 inches in diameter after they've been fired. So they'll be terracotta clay, and they'll be treated, so they'll be kind of sealed so that we can paint acrylic on top of that, and then there'll be an additional sealer so that it won't get weathered. The idea is that over time, over several years, maybe 3 or 4 years, we'll have another school come in there and paint over it. So it'll be kind of like a perpetual art project. The objective is to have more of these throughout the city. So this will be the first one. Hopefully there'll be places like the Scott Hall Park or along the downtown corridor And it'll bring in people and families and tourism and kind of give us a little stamp in public art surrounding Letting McBean. The other part of this is a mini mural project. Both of these, by the way, are kind of brainstorm ideas that Jean Cross and I sat down over coffee and thought about a couple of years ago. The mini murals are individual bricks. They're going to be at eye level along Lincoln Boulevard. So people can come as they're shopping and see this art, and next to the bricks there'll be little plaques, and it'll have the student's name on there, their grade level, and what school they go to. So that'll bring parents out, and it'll kind of give, again, more ambiance to Lincoln as an art community. And these are things that are going to happen over the summer, and the program we're going to be engaging that with will be the Phoenix students. So that'll be early summer or late spring, depending on when we can get the foundation in. So this is what it would look like. And so here is kind of a schematic of where it would be on from the street side. So there's 2 trees and lots of roots. So we're kind of going towards the sidewalk to avoid some of the larger roots to kind of make it easier on Public Works to get the foundation in. And there's 3 there because last year we had a sculpture put in, and there are 3 obelisks on the sculpture. So for symmetry purpose, we decided to have 3. So it's kind of like what it's going to look like without the foundation. Apologize for the rudimentary artwork here.
Okay, so can I ask a quick
Sure,
question?
go ahead.
Will the top of the pipe be open?
Sort of. It'll be open to about, I would say, maybe a foot. And the reason behind that is so that we can put art in there or put things in there and hide them in the event that we wanted to do programs where we could invite the public to come and kind of a scavenger hunt thing for art. So that was kind of the sequela of this down the road.
Okay, I just don't want them to become garbage cans.
I'm sorry?
Garbage cans.
Oh, yeah, garbage cans. Well, we can put wire on there when we're not. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, good thinking.
I used to be a middle school teacher.
I get it. Yeah. And I had a teenager too, so yeah. So just kind of give you an idea about the funding, the California Arts Council has a program called Creative Youth Development, and that supports community arts organizations that go in and help schools implement art programs. And also the Placer Community Foundation, they had an endowment funded or underwritten by Mary Ann Flemmer Arts and Environmental Fund, so we were able to get some funds from that. And again, it's in support of the Prop 28 program that we're now working with I've been working with Scott Pickett, the Superintendent of Education at Western Placer Unified School District, and also the Placer County Office of Education in developing a strategic plan to be rolled out to various schools. So that's kind of our involvement with getting art education implemented, given the fact that there's a gap of instructors in California because of Prop 28. So we're developing programming to fill that gap. And our focus is Title I schools, and the 2 schools that we selected for this program are Phoenix High School and Creekside Oaks Elementary. And those programs are underway right now. All right, so this kind of gives you a timeline. We're looking to do that this summer. We have to complete it by 9/1 because of the deliverable requirements for the grants. And we're looking to do a reveal for each of these projects. Maybe an ice cream social or something along those lines, just to bring the public out and share what we're doing in developing community arts in Lincoln. Any questions?
Thank you. That sounds awesome.
Great.
Okay, questions from the council?
Yes. Not a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, do it.
Yes, do it. Okay.
None?
I think it's great. Yeah, awesome.
Thank you.
It's
I
exciting.
appreciate that.
Any comments from the public? Online? Go. Yes, ma'am. Hi.
Hi, Madam Mayor. My question is about the schools that they chose. As a mom of Western Placer Unified School District, I want to make sure that these opportunities to be on that clay is available to all the Lincoln kids. And I didn't know if that was because of the funding source, if they just chose Title I schools because of that. But I know there's some really talented kids across the district that might be really good. And so if it's a perpetual thing, I'm really interested in making sure that it's a Lincoln resident available and not just Title I schools.
Go ahead.
Yes, yes, and yes. So as we grow our capacity, and thank you for your support this year, you've given us the seed funding so that we can do that. We're actually in the process right now of growing our artists inventory so that we can roll this out to Lincoln, First Street, Glen Edwards, and then also into 12 Bridges. We do recognize that there's some great youth artists out there. I don't know if you came to our January show at the gallery. It was amazing. I think this was our third one that we did. So yeah, we definitely recognize there's talent out there. And as we grow our organization, we're going to capture that and bring all the students out into the streets and their art and celebrate that.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so it says adopt resolution, so we just need to take a motion to approve item 14C.
I motion to approve.
Second.
You guys are so awesome.
Roll call, please.
Okay. Councilmember Eklund,
Yes.
Councilmember Reedy,
Yes.
Councilmember Pearl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Absolutely.
Mayor Andriata.
Yes, right, congratulations and thank you. Looking forward to the reveal and the ice cream party. So, thank you. Yes, awesome.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along, item 15, city manager reports.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. We're hosting a elected official dinner Thursday at our airport, which would be kind of cool. We're going to pull up some airplanes. Thank you very, very much to Jeff Demur, who graciously allowed us to use his hangar for the dinner. I always come proud of it. I know we've done it there before, but I'm proud of it because no one else really has an airport. So, you're not just eating in some stuffy diner somewhere or something. And then just a continuous plug. Tonight, the charrette for downtown's plan is going on. Another one tomorrow, another one Thursday. So lots of opportunities. There will be more thereafter. But if you can participate in person, in writing, anyway, we'd love to have you. And one other thing, I saw a note that was sent from some community members that attended some workshop. I don't think it was the one today, but it was related to downtown plan. It felt like the concept that had been discussed there was already baked. And so the city already knew which way it was going with the downtown plan. That's not accurate. We may have propositions about what we think makes sense for changes to policy and code and design in the downtown area, but they're just ideas. And so the whole point of a charrette process is to throw those out there so that people aren't just drawing something from scratch and get feedback. And if they don't work, they don't work, and we try something else. So just please, please, please participate. Thank you.
All right, council initiated business. Kind of have a couple things. The first one is have you heard from Gladys McBean about the 150th celebration yet?
Not me directly, no.
Okay, so apparently that's supposed to be happening in April. I spoke to Mr. Luchetti a week ago or a week and a half ago, and I said, please let us know. And I emailed, I haven't heard back yet, so I'm gonna keep trying to reach, but maybe you can reach out. We definitely don't want to miss that, whatever they're doing. We want to be part of that. And then also, just really quickly, I had mentioned this to you a couple weeks ago, but I'm following back up because I got another phone call today. So out there in the Village One area, backed up to the villas at Sun City, like those condos out there, that field I told you about, the equipment that's just sitting there. There's a big pond, water, mosquitoes, all of that. And I know the construction stopped. Is there something we can do about that to have them kind of clean that up, drain the water or whatever?
Two things. We can have them clean it up and drain the water, and then we'll also, I'd like to try to make use of our mosquito abatement district as much as humanly possible, so we'll get them to come out and treat it as well.
Great. Appreciate Next thing is,
Like that one. Sorry.
oh, sorry, go ahead, go
That's
ahead.
okay.
Sorry, I thought everybody said no.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I just wanted to get a quick update and let everyone know we're still having discussions. And our city manager, Sean, is still working in communications with CEO of the County Board of Supervisors to look into solutions for the Sierra College 12 Bridges light. And then I've had some residents reach out to me regarding concerns and also wondering if there's any potential solutions to have some sort of access or crossing on 12 Bridges and Camino Verdera, which also turns into Camino Cielo, which is that little auxiliary neighborhood in Casa Verdera, that there's the 4 lanes to cross and no way to cross as a pedestrian without going all the way down and around. And I know there's kids on bikes that want to connect those trails, and walking, got to make a mad dash across all those lanes. So anyway, I thought I would bring that up and see if there was any way that we could look into that, if that's been done, or if it's even a possibility. And it's kind of challenging because it's so many lanes.
Yeah, but so Vin's team and their traffic committee will add this to the list. They go out, measure distances, talk to PD, talk to Public Works, try to figure out, in some cases, yeah, it's not that big a deal. In other cases, there might be a really good reason why it's a very dangerous place to have a crossing. And so we'll put it on the list.
Thank you. And that's it.
Yeah, I was going to say that my item of business would be that there is a large portion of our population that don't do social media at all. Facebook, those kinds of things. So some of the outreach and things that we post or that we do, they can't benefit from, or they don't. So I get a lot of questions as to, well, what's happening over here? Or how come I didn't hear about this or that? And want to make sure that we figure out a way, if possible, which I'm sure we can, to post, as we post on these social media outlets, places for the younger generation, those that have it, because it's easy access and easy to get the word out that way. That maybe on the city website, that those that can use that but don't have Facebook or don't want to do social media can still get those updates. One of the things that, anyways, there's a lot into that, but there is a large population that just doesn't do that.
I think you do that, don't you, Aaron? You make a good point. Vice Mayor Brown.
On the city website, though?
Yeah, go ahead, Aaron. I think,
Yes, we post on the city website. We have a lot of links in paper materials that are sent out, and we also include it in the e-bulletin, which is email-based communication. It's not social media, and that's subscription.
Okay.
So somebody can subscribe to that by going to our webpage, and there's a link at the top where they can access that, sign up by email to get that information. And then we try to post through our community groups, send that out to our larger neighborhoods as well in terms of paper communication, how they can get that information back on our website. But we'll be sure to make sure we reach out to those groups, especially with what we have on the near horizon. So thank you.
I didn't know that. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I will do my job to help close that informational gap or that knowledge so that they have that.
Yes, and we can put some information out too, now that we've refreshed a lot of our communications as it comes to our e-bulletin and other communications on how people can subscribe to that moving forward as well.
Thank you.
yeah, I'm always directing people to the e-blast. If you don't do social media, whatever, subscribe to that and you'll get emails and you get all kinds of information. So it's good. So thank you for bringing that up. Appreciate it. Okay, item 17, committee reports. Anybody have a report? First?
Sure. Attended the City of Lincoln Economic Development Committee, working on getting our subgroups going with the new Division of Labor. Whitney and I met actually with the Placer County Economic Development Team about some of the things that they're doing and hooked them up with Sierra Pacific. They do a business kind of reach out to large businesses to kind of see what kind of resources they are. I think we have that meeting on next Monday. I attended PCA board. I filled in for Richard at Pioneer. Something to look for in the fall that they did at that meeting is they have this thing they're adopting called an ice bear, which apparently hooks onto your air conditioning system and allows it to make ice at night to then use to cool during the day, and it saves about $50 or $75 a month in electricity. So that'll be something, if you're a Pioneer customer, that will be something we'll be rolling out to the community, I think, in the fall or next year. We're starting with commercial customers. I attended LISWA. They're getting closer to the WWTRT measurement, although apparently not as close as I had thought. And then I attended the Western Placer Waste Management Authority, the landfill, for those that don't know what that is. They actually are going to engage in a rebranding exercise to create a DBA of a more friendly name.
Really? No.
Wait,
I
no
love
more WAPMA?
WAPMA. That's just,
Isn't that user-friendly enough?
yeah.
Are you allowed to say what the
Yeah.
said new name might be?
I don't remember what the name was. Everyone's kind of going back to their jurisdiction and asking. It's not going to be a JPA rename, so it won't be anything that'll come before here. They want to do a DBA. They're kind of modeling it after some of the authorities in the Bay Area that have their DBA called Stop Waste or We Recycle. So it's a little tagliney-ish. We'll see what happens. There's not going to be a meeting there on April, so we'll know more maybe in May.
I remember right, Dan hated that WAPMA.
WAPMA?
Yeah.
I like it.
I know,
Burn
but
on
Dan
me.
hated it.
We all know what it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's because we said it so much, but Dan's like, I hate this.
Thanks, John.
We should just recycle that name.
Yeah, you're like, don't kill the messenger. Okay, Ben, did you attend any meetings? Did you?
No, I mean,
I
I
got it.
did, but it was just informational more for PCTPA.
Okay,
And then I have PCTPA again tomorrow.
okay. Did you go to the Max before?
Was not able to because I was incapacitated. I was, I was not.
No? Do you have an alternate? Okay, okay. All right. Do you have
Yeah, let's see. Okay, you said Placer County EDC, Airport Committee. Richard was on Zoom from Mexico, but he and I were both at the Airport Committee, and you are our aviation expert, so I'm not going to steal your thunder.
Well, we talked about the airport runway project. We talked about this before. It's been pushed back to 28, 29. We talked about the different types of alternatives that we might be able to fast forward it and reduce the cost on it while not impacting the airport as much as we can. We also talked about the hangar projects. That's coming along very well. And then we also gave an update on a proposed activity out there called the Speed Fest and Car Show. A couple of the committee members had some concerns about making sure that we don't adversely impact the airport runway. And that's a primary concern of ours. So we told them we'll do a deeper dive into that. We'll get back to it. It's still in the planning stages. We're looking at October, mid-October to hold the event. We think it's going to turn out to be a signature event for not just the city of Lincoln, but regional. This is a great opportunity for us to bring a lot of people into Lincoln. And it's also a great opportunity for us to monetize this situation and to get money out there that will go 100% for capital projects at the airport. So it's still a work in progress, but it's coming along very well.
Good, thanks. John already talked about LISWA, but one other thing that I can mention is that we are going to begin conversations about general manager, and do we want to stay with the consultant firm that we are currently contracted with, or do we want to just go out and hire our own? We have to have those conversations. So it's going to be a heavy conversation coming soon to a meeting near you. And then I had SACOG last week, and this was hosted in Rockland this time, which was kind of cool. Rockland Mayor Jill Gallardo and City Manager Ali got a big bus for everybody, and they did a tour of Rockland in the beginning, and it was really interesting. Like, you know, I've known Rockland my whole life, but I learned a lot. It was really interesting, and even got to have donuts from like the world famous donut and cinnamon shop, you know. And then we went back to the event center on Sunset and not a lot to report about the meeting, but it was great to be in Placer County, showcase Placer County, and it was a pretty good meeting. And just general information. They're going over the budget process and all of the work things that SACOG does, but nothing earth shattering, nothing that we need to know about right now, just, process stuff. So I think that's all I had. So anything else from anybody? No. Okay. All right. Do we have any information items?
Yes. I just wanted to share that our fire captain, Evan Faddis, came out to our Verdera HOA and gave a very professional, informative presentation to the community and discussed what the fire map, severity fire map meant and what we know about it, and did a little bit of a deep dive into our community and giving us some pointers and any advice that he could think of to be as responsible homeowners and mitigate potential fires. And if we wanted to look into becoming a fire-wise community, that website is very easy to access, and I'm sure that we can share that if we are. Do we already have that, Aaron, on our website, the Firewise? Yeah, I thought that was a link. Okay, so it's already available. And then I just wanted to just say really quickly that I was watching the last Planning Commission meeting last week on Wednesday night, and it was a tough item. I'm not going to make it a practice to get involved. I want them to have as much autonomy as possible, but it was a tough item that they were working with, and it was regarding our policy and ordinance on not allowing, like display cases and items outside of businesses. And I felt really proud of our planning commission in the way that they communicated with the applicant. And I felt that they exemplified kindness, compassion, and went the extra way to make an effort into helping and providing solutions, even though it ultimately wasn't approved. And then I was also disappointed just to see a lot of negativity online and on social media that I have to believe if a lot of the people watched the actual meeting and knew the information behind the scenes, that they might not have felt so strongly and reacted so quickly to judge our planning commissioners. So anyway, I just wanted to say it's tough to sometimes say no, and we always want to make everybody happy, but sometimes you just can't. And we haven't always done a good job, I think, in the past of delivering messages and communicating. But in this particular instance, I feel like they did a really great job. That's all.
Good, yeah. Awesome, thank you for that. Anybody else?
I was going to say that this last weekend, we had the Crystal Apple Awards for recognizing teachers. This one was a little more special from what I've heard, because the teachers really relish in the fact that it's the award is nominated by students. There's other, as I've talked to some of the administrators, there's other things that they do for teachers. They have, some of the teachers nominate each other for different things. But the ones that they really like are the ones that actually come from the students. And then so that happens again.
One of the recipients from Lincoln High School was Donna Toft, who has been in the district for 45 years, and she was my PE teacher and volleyball coach at Glen Edwards when she was Mrs. Dadoshka before she got married. And so, it was great to see her again and just, see her get that award, and it was kind of cool.
In connection with that, it was actually my daughter that nominated Ms. Toft.
And she got to,
She got to present
yeah.
the award
That was
to
good.
Ms. Toft, and my wife was also taught by.
I know, yeah,
So.
crazy,
Pretty cool.
crazy. All right, thank you for that. Anybody else? Great. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you, staff. We are adjourned.